Job Hunting
101.
Providing you with the tools you need in your job search.
Career fairs, resume writing, job banks, veteran programs.
Job Hunting
101.
Good afternoon. My name is Julius Colley, a work readiness instructor for Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance. I want to welcome you to our workshop, Work Readiness Workshop today, part of Job Hunting 101 series. Today, my special guest, I want to thank for sharing this series with us, and we're going to be talking about a couple of segments that we think is very important in our job search. I'd like to start off by talking about making positive career decisions. That's a very important statement because a lot of individuals, when they're out looking for employment, one of the main problems is the question arises, what is it that I really want to do? At some point in your life, you have to stop making decisions as to what job I'm going to do today, but what career am I going to do for the rest of my life? We have to understand that jobs lead us to careers, and careers lead us to successful employment endeavors and retirement. I'd like to ask one of my guests today to kind of share what do you think and why do you think careers are important?
I feel career is important because it's something that you can depend on to be successful, and it helps you be able to reach those goals in life that you're trying to reach for you and your family.
That's a great comment. Anybody else would like to give any comments on that statement? And I truly agree, because seeking employment is a very, very endeavored task. And what we need to realize is that this is how we live. And a lot of times when we are seeking careers, we forget about setting goals. We as human beings set goals sometimes that are not realistic. And setting an unrealistic goals means that you're setting yourself up for failure. I'm the type of individual that I believe that a person should first of all find out what it is that interests them, what it is that they feel that they love to do versus what I like to do. How can I help the individual that I'm working with along with myself in making decisions that I myself want to make sure that I be successful in my employment search. Being realistic, setting realistic goals. What percentage do you think right now in setting realistic goals versus failure and a lot of our candidates that are seeking employment? I'd like to ask Ms. Teal that.
I think the percentage is very low because you don't have a lot of individuals out there that have set goals. So if you haven't set goals, like what are you reaching for? Great answer. Because a lot of our candidates that visit a lot of the centers, and especially Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance, when they come in, they just don't have realistic goals. And we have to give them that leadway in order to sit down and plan and find out what path that you need to take. There's also what we call a time phase in setting careers and realistic goals, because we must say, realistically speaking, the clock does not stop for anyone. And what we have to do is stop procrastinating and say to ourselves, I need to get this job done. So when we say time phase, we're talking about setting time phases that we're going to reach certain parts of our goals that's going to make us successful in reaching our careers. So what I'm asking, I guess, today is for us to just take about 5 seconds to think about. Time phase is a clock. And that means that we have to be action-oriented. We have to put things to work, get the wheels turning. And what we have to do in setting goals, we have to start our research. Starting your research is to find out, is the career that I'm pursuing, will it be around in the next 5 or 10 years? Mm-hmm. Is the career that I'm pursuing, is it something that our society can benefit from? Is it something that I can grow on? So just from that paragraph and those words that I just expressed, what would you think action-oriented would mean to some of our candidates coming in? Because a lot of our candidates come in, they have very low self-esteem, and they've come from a rigid background that say that you can't and you shouldn't and you won't succeed. What advice can you give them?
I guess you can like sit down with them and ask them what they want to do.
Good.
Or have they taken any education, like as far as like trying to reach the goal of what they want to do. First you need to find out what it is that you're good at, what interests you, and then you go from there.
Excellent. I guess what I'm hearing, and you can clarify it's not, you have to write down your goals and make sure your goals is clear to you, because you're the one that have to overcome all of the barriers and hurdles in order to reach that goal. Also, you got to make this what? Commitment. And making a commitment means taking a stand. And taking a stand means that sometimes you're taken out of your comfort zone. And when people are out of their comfort zone, that's where centers like Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance and other organizations similar to ours work. Give that candidate, that individual, the insight on what it is that I need to do to achieve. Also, we have to find ourselves in a positive environment, in an environment saying you can versus you can't. And a lot of times when we pursue a goal that we feel that's not achievable or reachable, all we have to do is just reach out and touch the next person to give us that encouragement and to give us that leadership and that guidance to say, you can do it and you will do it. Because this is your life. And that's very important, because when a person develops a positive career, he or she becomes actually a role model. And becoming a role model is very important, because now people look at you as a leader, and this is a person that I would like to follow. In developing what we call an action plan, I'd like to ask Ms. Woodside, what would you consider an action plan?
The first action plan, I feel, would be getting up in the morning with the mindset to want to go look for a job or to want to set that goal that you want to be successful. Like you said, getting out the pencil and paper and writing down what it is that you have planned to do. I would start with a daily action plan of, on a daily basis, this is what I'll do from each time until you accomplish that goal that you're trying to reach.
Great, great response. Anybody else would like to add on to that comment?
Well, it's good to find out what motivates them and work on that.
And basically, motivation is something that is instilled from interest. Motivation is something that we build on. Motivation is something that we capture. Motivation is something that we're able to share with other people. And it all boils down to an interest and commitment. And I would like to say that, you know, career decisions are very important, because we have to think about our future, and we want to make sure that we have the proper individuals and proper occupations. And the occupations that are out there now, the various agencies, it's our responsibility to make sure that we put every necessary training opportunity, employment opportunity out there for these individuals to make a sound decision on what career he or she would like to pursue. Careers, to me, are basically a foundation. It's the foundation of who you are, where you're headed, and what's the ending results. The barriers are going to be there. That's what we call everyday life, and we have to overcome them. Professionalism is something that we have to connect with barriers. And sitting here today with among three professionals, I have a question that either one of you can attack on this. At most of your centers that assist people with training and employment ventures, what do you see some of the things that maybe we need to stress more with?
Attitude. I would say attitude is one of the biggest issues, or that should be something that someone should concentrate on, is coming in with a positive attitude, no matter what your barriers could be, such as childcare, transportation, or wherever it may be. But I think your attitude plays a big part in you getting that job, or creating that career that you would like to have.
Great. And I must add on and say that a lot of times this attitude comes in because it prevails from maybe coming out of a negative situation. And we have to introduce, even approaching our office, we have to introduce that positive attitudes, professionalism, and kindness open doors to everlasting opportunities. And I would just like to say, at this time, it's a pleasure to have you on this segment. And we're going to take a brief break and come back in a few minutes.
Job seekers, you can upload your resume, view job postings, and research labor market information at employflorida.com.
Tampa Bay Community Network, may I help you?
Hello, I would like to produce a TV show on your planet.
Great.
Do I have to be a Tampa resident?
No, you don't have to be from Tampa to take our video production training classes or to have a show on our channels.
Really? Well, I'm from another planet. Is that okay?
It's fine. Tampa Bay Community Network members come from Orlando, Valrico, Lakeland. They come from everywhere. Being from another planet is no problem. You're from our galaxy, right?
Yes, I am. How do I get started?
Sign up for orientation class. We have them twice a month and they are free.
I'm in. Sign me up.
Anyone over the age of 18 can take TBCN video production and Final Cut Pro edit classes, produce programming, and host programming right from our studios at the University Mall. Call 813-977-5200 today and sign up for our next orientation class, no matter what planet you're from.
Welcome back. My name is Julius Colley, Work Readiness Instructor for Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance. Thanks for participating in part one of our Job Hunting 101 series. This segment of our program will be dealing with resumes. Resumes are very important. Why? Because they are a portfolio of you, the person that's applying for a job. Basically, resumes is a summary of your skills, your personality, your achievements, and your work history. It's very important to an employer to know who and how and what type of individual they're bringing into their program. Here today on my panel, I have a group of young ladies that are going to assist me today in determining how important a resume is in your job search. There are various types of resumes. And I must say that probably one of the most common would be the chronological resume, one that we see probably every day in individuals looking for a job. Also, we have what we call the functional resume, which for individuals that's coming in that's trying to portray their skills and experiences. Then we have what we call a targeted resume, where we are looking for specific organization or company and job that we are applying for. I would like to ask somebody in the audience today, why do you think a resume is so important?
I think a resume is important because it depends on which type of company that you're trying to find a job in. They want to know what kind of experience you have for that job, if you have any degrees, any specific skills that they're looking for, and you need to put it on your resume to let them know.
Good. Anyone else like to comment?
I also think resume is important because it introduces you prior to that employer meeting you. Some employers, they can read your resume and know if they want to hire that person or know if you're a good fit for that position. So
Excellent.
It determines if they give you a call or not. So I think that's why it's very important to make sure your resume is updated and detailed on what the skills are.
Good. And I think one thing that we want to make clear is that each individual has to understand, they have to find their format of what type of resume that's good for them, especially in their presentation. And the types of resumes that we've introduced, a lot of people come into a lot of centers, and this is one of the starting points, one of the selling points, because you must realize you're selling one of the most important products on the market, and that's yourself. So that means that you don't want to have any negatives. Everything on that resume should be positive. And what employers are looking for now, they're looking for various types of resumes. And when I say various types of resumes, clean-up resumes, resumes that are easy to read, resumes that introduce an individual as it relates to the connection of the type of person that I want in my organization versus the type of person that would come in and not get the job done. Where would we think that it would start making our resume professional? I would like to ask Ms. Luba.
If the strengths are listed and focused on, that would attract attention to the person who
Good. And I must add on also, there's another important tip that I like to give you today, is that a lot of times individuals turn in resumes and it's regular paper out of a copy machine. If we want to compete and be different, we have to understand that we have to present something different. I'm a firm believer that resume paper, the actual professional resume, cotton paper, actually gives your resume that professional look. And I think that also would give you an edge with the employer. So maybe that tip we can use. We want to make sure that we stay away from the loud colored resume paper and stay with the more blend and the professional, maybe your gray and your beige, and always your conventional, your white background. But we want to make sure we stay away from the loud type resume paper.
A question, it's not
Yes.
about the resume paper. Say I'm a single parent that came in, or a single mother, never worked in my life, just stayed home and took care of my kids, and now all of a sudden now I have to go and get a job. What resume do you feel I would use? 'Cause I know most resume, it asks for employment background. I have no employment background. So how would I be able to fill out, what resume do you recommend that I use, and how would I fill it out?
I would definitely recommend a functional resume for you. Basically, showing your skills, your transferable skills, showing your experiences, and a lot of that can be used in the employment world. Why? Because a lot of times people don't understand. When you are a domestic worker, I have been out of the working world for a while, you have been doing something. And it may not be something of a monetary value, but it's something that you can use as transferable skills in order to get a job. So I would definitely say a functional resume. Showboat your functional resume. Good question.
And would I be able to come to the workforce and do that?
Yes, you can. We have an abundance of opportunities, classes that you could take that will, individuals will sit with you hand to hand to show you and actually set up a resume that you feel comfortable with, that you can go out and become employed. Okay. In writing your resume, we have to be real careful of our wording. A lot of individuals have no concept of basically how to set a resume up. A resume is a very personal document because a lot of personal information is on that document. We want to make sure that our name on our resume is bold. We want to make sure that we have legit phone numbers. A lot of times on that resume, what kills us, and it seems minute to a lot of people, but it's very important to the employment sector. We have to be very careful with our voicemails, the type of content on that voicemail. We have to be very careful with that email, the kind of information that we're giving out. And the old conventional resume of the objective is now, from my understanding, is obsolete. So I would say that maybe this is your choice. If you feel that this is very important to you in using a resume or a skill summary or profile, and then this is what you need to do. Because on the end result, you are the individual that have to live and stand by this resume. You are the individual that have to take this resume to an interview and sit in front of him or her or that panel and prove yourself to be the worthy candidate to get this job today. I would like to ask another very important question. When setting up a resume, what are some of the things that you think that would make up that resume that would interest an employer?
The skills that the employer is looking for, I would say I would look on their website or look at their job description of what they're looking for and make sure I have the skills that they're looking for, and that be maybe the top of my resume. I'm going to assume it's what you're asking.
Yes.
And then list all the jobs that pertain to that particular skill or that
Excellent.
particular job description that they're looking for.
Excellent. And I would further say that it's real important to make sure that you match skills that match you, because those skills is going to be proven pretty soon. Also to match the job. Also another tip that I'd like to give you today, maybe the job that you're applying for, maybe you would like to get the job announcement, and maybe take a look at it and maybe translate some of the same wording into your past experiences on jobs that you've held in the past. You want to make sure that when that employer reads that resume, they are looking at a true candidate to fill this position. In building that resume, there's certain information that we think is very important in getting the eye catcher of the employer. Number one is skills. I do agree. I fully agree. It's the skills. Also, employers are looking for what we call credentials. So that tells me that education is very important. And a lot of times, the alignment of the resume causes an individual to miss out on a job opportunity. That's why agencies like Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance and other partnership agencies, that's why we're there, to make sure that that individual have a place to come so we can help critique that resume and make that resume more professional and visible to the reader. In doing this resume process, first of all, a person must be real with themselves. I've heard the statement, this is a wrong resume. Only true to me if it's a resume that has something on it that's not true. Other than that, I think that we can sit down and help build this resume up to be something positive and actually represents you. So you want to be real careful. In building your resume, we want to make sure that we stick directly to the point. There are some do's on a resume and there are some don'ts on a resume. At this time, I would like to talk about maybe a couple of the do's on the resume. I would like to ask Ms. Snell, what do you think is one of the do's on a resume?
As far as like your contact information, I think it's very important. As far as like your email, to put your first and your last name instead of making up like nicknames and things like that.
Excellent.
So it's very professional to put your first and your last name as your
Excellent,
email.
because this is something that represents you. What are some of the do's for the resume? I would give a tip that, first of all, resumes should be in the right grammar. A lot of times when we're reviewing resumes, and if you're going to present this resume in a professional way, we want to make sure we watch that grammar. We want to make sure that if you're no longer working on this job, I think your job description and your job duties should be in the past tense, not the future. Because you're confusing me because I'm looking at a date and I'm looking at a date that don't coincide with what you've done on that job as it relates to the past. So we want to make sure that we keep this thing consistent. Also, we want to watch our spelling. Man, this is a do.
Spell check.
Correct spelling, spell check. And it's a good idea sometimes because sometimes our computers overlook words. So it may be good to get a second or third eye to make sure that when I submit this resume is 99% correct. Because when you're going out looking for a job, you must remember you are competing and you want to be on your A game today. This is the only way that you're going to be successful in getting this job. In completing a resume, there are also some other valuable information other than your skills. Maybe your work history, maybe your working background. A lot of times, words captivate the reader's attention. I'm a firm believer that instead of maybe using sometimes work experience or work history, maybe we can uplift that by saying work professional experience. I love to read things that are professional, and I'm pretty sure the person that you're going out for that interview today also loves it. So how do you feel about the text, the topics on that resume as it relates to your employment history?
I feel it sounds pretty good to have professional work experience. If I was an employer trying to hire someone, I may pick up that resume faster than picking up one that just says skills on it.
Excellent.
So, I mean, I think that is a very good idea.
Excellent. And now that we've talked about the do's, what about the don'ts? What about the don'ts on the resume? A lot of individuals actually don't know when to put the pen down or when to stop. So what would you consider one of the don'ts, Ms.
No rambling.
You want to be direct and to the point.
Exactly.
So that leads me to say that maybe your resume should be in maybe one of two type of contents. Maybe a paragraph or in a what type of form? A bullet form. And the thing with a resume that makes the resume complicated, a lot of times it's the readers. We have to understand that sometimes we may give out 10 resumes and it may be in a paragraph form, and you may be giving it to an individual or a group of individuals that are not readers. So that means that we may have to make some adjustments. So sometimes we may have to have two different styles of resumes to please everybody that we're sending presenting that resume to. Ms. Snell, did you have something to say about that?
I was going to say not to put like anything negative about your past employer on there.
And also, at this point, I don't think I would put a salary on the resume.
Right.
And I also possibly wouldn't put a picture. Maybe if I'm going for that particular job, maybe a modeling position, maybe that would be acceptable. But other than that, that would be something that I would detach from my resume. Yes, ma'am.
Would a don't be to have a one page? I mean, a don't would be not to have more than one page on the resume, or how? What would you say about that?
There are a lot of cliches out there about a one-page resume, but I'm a firm believer that the information that I put on my resume, if I believe that it's information that's going to help me get this job, and then my resume may be more than one page. Because I'm looking at those individuals that have 30 and 40 years of employment history. It's very difficult to get a one-page resume out of that. I want to make sure that I put the important information down to make sure that they get the full array of what and who Julius Colley is. So the one-page theory out there, I guess a lot of people, I would leave it up to them, but I would say that this is a judgment call. It's something that you have to make that judgmental call on. But acceptable in the corporate world is a 1- or 2-page resume. To further this discussion, there are other information that we need on a resume that sometimes can highlight who we are, and that may be an interest. And when you say interest, what are we talking about?
Something, an interest of something that interests you the most, that may pertain to that particular job. I would think
that you're right on target. A lot of people would like to know, what is it that you are involved in other than seeking employment? A lot of people do some valuable, very valuable community work. I think that needs to be on there. You work with kids on a daily basis, or you work with the elderly. Anything that you think that would go on to captivate someone's attention. We want to be real careful not to put political standards on there, or you want to be real careful not to go into personal information that's not related actually to finding a job. It's very important because you don't want to close the door on something that you had the opportunity of landing. Yes, ma'am.
That would be like volunteer work?
Yes, ma'am. That's what it would be, your interest, volunteer work. Currently, I'm involved with coaching Little League football, and I can't wait to get to that part of my resume where I put that down, because I want people to know that I'm involved in individuals that are going to be leaders in our community one day, and individuals that's going to be our future. I want to make sure that they understand that I'm a part of that. There's a lot of programs that offer youth programs. Maybe I can be a part of that youth program. So that resume is basically a mirror image of you. And you have to sell yourself to that employer as saying that the other 14 people are sitting outside. This is my job. That's part of that resume. Any more questions to end this session out? Yes, ma'am.
Would you recommend a cover letter? As I look through the book, I see that they have a cover letter. So would you recommend having a cover letter with a resume?
Personally, yes, ma'am, I would represent a cover letter on my resume. Basically because it's a short introduction of who you are. But now there are some companies who just want to get to the meat factor of your resume. So sometimes you may have to do what we call some research to find out what companies are looking for. That this company actually require me to have a cover letter, that this company just actually require me to have a resume. That's part of your responsibility of developing that resume, but I would suggest to everyone that you have what we call a cover letter, which is a basic, short introduction of your resume. At this time, I'd like to take a break, and we'll be back with the next segment. Thank you very much.
Employers, you can search candidate resumes and research labor market information at employflorida.com.
Today is a special day. Today we gather as a nation and as an international community to recognize the selfless decision of one of the most influential women of our time. She's been recognized by religious figures and politicians around the world. To us, she's just Rachel. But to the rest of the world, she is the woman who, after having one too many drinks, chose not to drive home buzzed. Here today to honor Rachel is the family whose lives she spared.
Welcome back. My name is Julius Colley, Work Readiness Instructor for Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance. Thanks for participating today and are part of our Job Hunt 101 series, Work Readiness Workshop. This part of our segment will be dealing with the interviewing process. And I'd like again to welcome my guest today, and we want to keep this program going. Interviews are very important. Why? Because this is a part of our networking skills. It's something that we have to do. We have to go before that employer, him, her, or that panel, and we have to introduce the most important product of our life, and that's ourselves. We have to become a salesman. We have to sell this product. And in selling this product, there are stages of interviews, and we call it networking that first stage. And when I say networking, what would be the first thing that comes to your mind?
Well, networking, I feel, is when you're meeting different people and different individuals and you're introducing yourself for the first time to that person and getting that person's information and knowing who that person is that you're meeting.
Excellent. Excellent answer. Because a lot of times opportunity is there, but we just don't go and network and get that opportunity. The information is there. The leadway is there. The guidance is there. The tips are there. It's our job to make sure that we come out of that comfort zone and go over and do what we need to do in order to network with individuals that can possibly help us gain gainful employment. And this is something that a lot of people have problems with. We do not have any problems discussing our work problems or discussing interview techniques with people that are well known to us. But people that are not well known to us, but maybe know people that are well known to us, those are the people that we shy away from. And sometimes that is what we call a knock on the door, a door of opportunity. So we need to make sure that we pursue that pathway. Also, in the interview, preparing for the interview, one of the first things that I think an individual should do is get themselves ready. A lot of individuals think that looking for a job, setting up for an interview is just going out there doing the footwork. No. You have to sit down with yourself and find out, first of all, what it is that I need to do to get prepared for this interview. I would suggest that, number one, that you find out what type of companies that you would like to apply for. And you need to find out, basically, what type of script am I going to use today in presenting myself. Also, you need to find out what type of questions, general questions that I think would be asked today. I wish we could not be realistic today and say that we know the question that's going to be asked to us on the interview, but that's impossible. But we can say there are some general questions that will be asked on an interview. So that means that I have to do some research before I actually get to that research. So other than finding out all the information you can about the company that you are going to apply for, because you possibly know one of those questions are going to be, what do you know about our organization? Mm-hmm. And we want to make sure that this is a question that we're going to get an A+ on. We're going to get 99.9% on that question. So what are one of the other areas that you think that we need to cover other than doing company research?
The dress attire that you plan on wearing to interview, what would you recommend would be a proper dress attire for interviewing?
I would say formal dress. I would say that for young men, you want to make sure that you have on a suit. maybe the bluish, black, or gray with the white background, or maybe a shaded background, a lower type of temperament, nothing flashy. Jewelry, we probably want to leave home. And females, I would probably say we want to watch and make sure our dress length, we want to make sure that we're covered up as much as possible in a professional manner. We don't want to leave too much open. We want to make sure that we leave all of the bling bling jewelry home, just conservative, maybe one ring, your watch, and a small bracelet. We want to leave the big loop earrings that some say sexy or whatever. We want to leave those type of things home. I also would recommend that closed-toe shoes, possibly stockings. We want to make sure that it's stockings that maybe match the texture of your legs. We want to make sure that it's not a loud color stocking, but something professional, something mild. Also, we want to make sure that when we're going on that interview, I always say, dress according to the situation. Dress according to the occasion and you can't go wrong. Young men, I always give advice, you can never go wrong by wearing a tie. I'm a firm believer, and even though it's in a lot of the organizations and in the corporate world, dress down day. I'm a firm believer, a tie is a dress down day for me, because you never know who you're going to be running into or who you have to represent and when or where you have to go and represent the organization that you're working for. And truly, you are a very important organization sitting here. So you want to represent yourself in a very professional manner. Thank you very much. That brings me to thinking about the different types and different stages of interview. I believe that there's what we call an opening. A lot of people don't understand. Interview starts from the time that you get in your car, from the time that you get on that bus, from the time that you get on that elevator, to the time that you get to that receptionist desk and present yourself, from the time that you actually sit in that chair. That's called an opening. We have to first realize we have to know how to present ourselves. Firm handshake, good eye contact, smiling face. And we have to make sure that when we present ourselves, we want to present ourselves in a very, very positive manner. We want to present ourselves with a very professional type of atmosphere. We want to present ourselves with a strong type of concept of, I know who I am and I'm the right person for this job. Are there any stages that you can think of that maybe need to be mentioned today?
Would add to that good posture.
Yes, ma'am. That
Really
means
speaks
that
loud.
brings us to possibly that chair. Am I right? We want to make sure that when we're sitting in that chair, we want to make sure that we follow directions first. A lot of times when that individual asks you to have a seat, I don't know why we take that a little further by saying they meant move the chair. No, it means follow directions, have a seat. We want to make sure we have excellent body posture sitting in that chair. We want to sit back. We want to sit upright. We want to make sure that our feet are flat on the floor. We want to make sure, young ladies, that if you are wearing a dress, you want to make sure that you're covered up. It's okay to cross the feet. It's okay for that. It's okay to hold your hands together, especially if you talk with your hands, because this is something, sometimes I'm an eye catcher. I usually follow hands. And can you imagine about 10 minutes after that, man, we need to take a break. So we want to make sure that we're conscious of that and aware of that. We want to make sure, because that's part of that interview, hand gestures. Are there any more tips that you can give me on that part, that stage one of that interview?
I would add that it's best to be honest, because if the interview does not match the resume, it's over.
Yes, ma'am. I fully agree. And that brings us to that part of the response part of answering the questions. Earlier, we talked about possibly some of the questions that are asked on that interview as it relates to generalization questions. Because again, we do not know what these individuals are going to ask us, but we want to be honest as possible. I can assume that they're going to ask us such questions as, tell me about yourself. You need to be ready. You've been living with yourself for X amount of years. That means that I'm going to get an A+ on that answer. Also, you know, they're going to ask you, what do you know about our organization? What can you tell us about Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance, or the organization that you're applying for? You want to make sure that maybe before your interview the week before, in that research, walk up to the counter, A lot of these organizations are social service type of organizations. They help individuals become self-sufficient. You can walk up and say, is it possible that I can get a brochure of your organization? Is it possible that I can get a copy of your last year's annual report so I can do some research? Because before I walk in there and sit in that chair, I want to know your retention rate. I want to know what your organization is all about. What have you done for the community in the last past 5 years? These are some of the things that's going to help you answer that question. I believe they're going to ask you questions like, why did you select this organization out of all the organizations in the Tampa Bay area? Why this organization? These are questions that you need to prepare yourself for. I'm a firm believer that we need to talk about what it is that brought me to this chair as it relates to why I want to work for your organization. They're going to ask you, if given the chance to be hired today, what is your expectation of our organization? Because we're going to tell you what's your expectation of us if you're fortunate enough to be hired today. They're going to ask you, what would you like to be in the next 5 years? We need to be ready. A lot of times people are just too direct in answering questions like that. We need to visit centers that would help us prepare ourselves to get ready to answer questions like that. I'm a firm believer that I want to sell you to that. I would love to be a part of your organization. And I know with the proper guidance and leadership that possibly one day I can be in a managerial capacity. These are what companies are looking for. This is the type of information and feedback companies are looking for. Also, there comes a part in the stage of that interview where questions are asked. You have the opportunity to ask questions. And a lot of people will sit there, I don't know, I call them perfection people, perfect individuals, which there's no perfect individual. So sometimes I'm confused. So maybe you can help me out and stop me from being so confused. What do you think? Should questions be asked at the end of the interview? Do you have any questions? What would be your response? What's one of the questions that you would ask an employee?
One that I probably would ask is, when should I expect that this position would be filled?
Excellent, because you're in a job search and you want to make sure that you understand the timeline of deciding on when this job is going to be filled. Because maybe there's some other things that you need to do. Because when you're on a job search, I can understand this would probably be not your first stop. This would probably be one of the stops that you'll be doing in your job search. It won't be your first and it won't be your last. So this opportunity here is to make sure that you get the proper feedback of knowing that a decision will be made at this time. So possibly we can piggyback off of that by saying, is it possible if I don't hear from your organization, may I follow up? It's your responsibility to follow up. But make sure you follow up after the timeline, a time date set that we will be making a decision of filling this position. Yes, ma'am.
Should someone ask, what's the salary or what's your medical benefits at that time in the interview to the employer? Would that be a question to ask?
First of all, I would assume that we have looked at the job announcement and there is a salary listed. If not, it could possibly be one of your questions. But we want to make sure that we put it in a way that it's not direct. We may want to phrase it as saying, yes, is it possible that you can tell me the starting salary for this position? To kind of get a figure thrown out on the table. Or the salary that I read in the announcement, is it negotiable? Because here and now, you need to make a decision whether or not you want to accept this job. Because sometimes all of us have what we call responsibilities. And one of the biggest responsibilities is financial responsibilities. And we want to make sure that when we do accept a job, we're accepting a job is going to make sure that we can fulfill these responsibilities that we have. So sometimes, and that's the individual, again, judgmental calls, because some companies, they stand firm with both feet, and sometimes you have to stand firm with both feet. And I would suggest that you be honest, like the young lady mentioned earlier in the program, and say your offer at this time, thank you very much, but I won't be able to accept it due to my current financial obligations. But it's been a pleasure talking with you today, and maybe again in the future. Any other feedback that you can give me on questions? We want to make sure that we ask questions that's going to make sure that we make a decision whether or not I want to work for your organization. I can remember applying for a job, and in one of my interviews, I asked the question, is it possible that I can take a tour of your company after this interview? And my main reason is that I'm a very professional individual, and I like for my working environment to be professional. And I like to walk around your company to sometimes to see how your employees present themselves, and whether or not I want to be a part of this environment and definitely a part of this company or organization. So you just want to make sure that when you finalize this, that when you walk out of here, you have a full concept of this is the organization that I would want to work for. Now, in closing that interview, what do you think are some of the most important things that you can do to let that employer know that this is the job that I want? Yes,
I would say the most important thing, or the first thing I would do, is thank them for the interview, for inviting you to come in for that particular interview.
It's always good to thank people. People remember that. Thank you very much for taking this opportunity this morning or this afternoon and interviewing me. It's been a pleasure learning about your company and giving me the opportunity to present myself to your organization. That's very important. We want to make sure that we give a firm handshake at the end. We want to make sure that we look at that on eye contact. And I would go even further in asking for a business card. What would one of the reasons be for asking for a business card?
So you can follow up?
Yes. You always want to follow up with that employee. A lot of times phone calls just don't do, because we must realize, just like they're interviewing you, they have other appointments to possibly interview other people that's interested for this position. So that means that maybe I can send an email, or maybe I'm going to stop to the nearest store where I can pick up a card. And I would suggest, a lot of people say, well, it's very expensive. A tip, maybe the Family Dollar store. They have some nice cards, thank you cards there. Just make sure, and I like cards that I can put writing into, not just the words. I want to say thank you very much, again, for taking this opportunity to interview me today. Looking forward to hearing from you, Julius Colley. And I may not have money to buy a stamp, but I'm going to take it back and give it to that receptionist and say, please give this to Mr. Colley, or please give this to Miss Colley, because I want he or she to know that I'm really thankful for them for taking the time out to interview me. Yes, ma'am.
How soon will you send a thank you card?
I would send a thank you card the same day if possible, because you don't want too much time to lapse, because they may forget you. Because 7 or 8 interviews after you, Mr. Colley, no, I want to keep this refreshed on your mind. I want to make sure if there's a thought process that I'm on the back burner, I want to make sure you just cut that back burner off and put me on the front burner. So we want to make sure that we stay aware of that. We want to make sure that we cover all of those little loopholes in that interviewing process, and believe in yourself. You're a very important product. There's no other product out there on the market that's better than you. And I call it self-confidence. It's not being cocky. Self-confidence goes a long way. I like to claim things. This is my job. The cliches of, I may not get the job, these are fears. Leave them alone. If I don't have a job and I go on an interview and don't get the job, at least I got some great experience. I'm not worried about what I'm wearing as long as I'm professionally dressed. My job is to go out and get a job, and the end result is to become self-sufficient. Thank you very much. At this time, we're going to be taking a break, and we'll be back in a few. Thank you.
Employers, you can search candidate resumes and research labor market information at employflorida.com.
Susan, why should I volunteer to do other people's taxes?
You'll help hard-working Hillsborough residents get all the tax credits they're entitled to, and you'll learn a valuable new skill.
What's the time commitment?
You could be a tax preparer, a greeter, or an interpreter at 30 convenient locations in only 2 to 4 hours a week.
Sounds like a great opportunity. Where do I sign up?
UnitedWayTampaBay.org. Volunteer to be a tax preparer. We need you too.
Job seekers, you can upload your resume, view job postings, and research labor market information at employflorida.com.
Good afternoon. My name is Julius Colley, Work Readiness Instructor for Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance. I'd like to welcome you back to our Work Readiness Workshop, part of the Job Hunting 101 series. Again, I'd like to thank my guests for participating. This part of the program, we're going to be dealing with something that a lot of corporations and organizations deal with, which is called customer service. First of all, I'd like for somebody in the audience here to identify in your own words, what is customer service?
Respect.
Good.
Positive attitude.
Good. Excellent.
Making me feel welcome when I come to that particular place of employment.
Good. Anybody else would like to share any information on that? And you are absolutely right. Customer service is politeness. It's a smiling face. It's an excellent greeter. It's an opportunity to share and assist people and help people. This is customer service. And in the corporate world now, it's not good enough just to have good customer service. Corporations are looking for what they call excellent and superb customer service now, because this is the driven pathway of every organization and corporation success. Excellent customer service. Now, when we're talking about customer service, is it just for individuals that come into organizations seeking assistance, or is it for everyone in that organization? Can anyone answer that question for me?
Everyone.
Yes. I would agree with you. Everyone. Everyone wanted to be treated the way I treat you, and that's with a smiling face. And usually, this customer service starts off at the front desk and doesn't end until that person walks out of the door. Customer service is a very, very important statement, because a lot of times we visit certain restaurants and we find ourselves going back to that restaurant, maybe not because the food is that good, but I love the customer service that I get there. The smiling face, the way I'm greeted, the way that they care about me as a customer. That's superb customer service. And working with an organization that deals with candidates on a daily basis, these are our customers, the employers that we deal with. They are our customers. And they want to be greeted with respect, a smiling face, professionalism, and politeness. This customer service, there are some P's that goes along with this customer service setting. And one of them, I would say, is policy and procedure. And policy and procedure is very important, because number one, as an employee, we have a responsibility to that organization and ourselves. That responsibility is to treat our customers with the utmost respect. That's in the policy. That's one of the procedures. And when you talk about policies and procedures, what does that mean in an organization that you have visited earlier?
If I heard your question correctly, you're saying what do we feel that the policy and procedures in a particular organization means towards customer service?
Yes, assisting that customer that walked to the front desk and say, I need help. What does that mean to you?
Making sure that person feels welcome, making sure that person understands why they're there.
Excellent.
If they're in the wrong spot, that you're able to direct them in the right direction. I think that's what you mean.
And you're absolutely right. And in following procedure, we as employees and even the customer, we have to understand we're going to have good days and we're going to have bad days. And we have to make sure that we make good decisions. And a good decision is make sure that when your customer, from the time they walk in to the time they walk out, is a satisfied customer. That's how an organization becomes successful. That's the presentation that we want to set. And that's the presentation that you want to set not only on the job, but in your personal life. And we all in our life have what we call policies and procedures. And to kind of get on the personal note of that, what are some of your personal customer service procedures that you deal with on an everyday basis in your household. A lot of times, people break rules
Right.
in our homes. Am I right? And I don't think that fancy with us too much.
No.
I think we have a problem with that. And we have to make some adjustments to that problem. I know some of my personal customer service rules are when you actually knock on my door and I greet you at the door, please do not jump over my welcome mat. That means that you need to what? Follow my rules and regulations. There's a process, there's a policy there. Please obey that policy. And it's very important when you get in the workplace because disobeying policies and procedures can possibly cost you what? Employment, your job. So we want to be real careful. And as professionals, we should never put ourselves in a position where we deliver bad customer service. Customer service is for everybody. Customer service is something that we should portray as a given. It's a smiling face. If it's something that you feel like you're not able to do or this is not your makeup, then I would suggest personally that you find you a job that doesn't deal with customer service. And when you do, please tell me what that job is. Because from my understanding now, all jobs require you to have customer service skills.
Right.
As individuals sitting here representing the customer and possibly employers, I would like to say that customer service is something that we carry with us every day of our life. We are the role models of the future, especially our kids. And we want them to understand the value and the concept of good customer service skills. Some of the things that good customer service skills does, it opens doors for you. It completes tasks for you in a positive manner. And it helps you reach goals that nobody else can reach. And it also helps you believe in yourself. Customer service skills are skills that you need to develop. And they're skills that you need to make sure that people understand this is who I am. That's why you should hire me. That's why you should give me the opportunity to work for your organization. I am the candidate for this job today. I am the candidate that you should hire today. I am the individual that should represent your organization. I would just like to say thank you very much for taking the time to participate today in the Work Readiness Job Search, part of the 101 Job Series. It's been a pleasure, and in the future, I would say, please remember some of the techniques that you picked up today so you can implement them into your everyday life and your career. Thank you very much.
Job seekers, you can upload your resume, view job postings, and research labor market information at employflorida.com.